Sodden Sanctuary is a 2D Dark Souls game that you never knew you always wanted. It has an uncanny way of looping shortcuts back to the places you've already been, interesting lore hidden away under all the item descriptions, and enough weapons that there's bound to be something for everyone. But what if? What if you didn't like all the weapon options? What if the idea of upgrades and transmutation systems makes your head hurt and you just want it to go away? Well, it turns out Sodden Sanctuary thought of you too. It just wasn't very friendly about it. Welcome to the Backlogs. Today's big question of the day, can I beat Sodden Sanctuary using only my fists? Let's clarify a few things. First, I can't use any other weapons. Fists only means fists only. Second, I can't use consumable items that cause damage. That includes throwing daggers, fire pots, and, it hurts me to say this, no flasks of defilement. Thirdly, rings, charms, armors, and consumables that don't cause direct damage are all acceptable for this run. And lastly, no cheating or exploits are allowed. The point of this run is to see if anyone can beat the game with fists only, and using PC-only options such as changing my controls to allow for instant long jumping are going to have to be left out for now. So with all that said, let's get into it. First, we need an appropriate name. Glorious. Okay, let's make sure we start off on the right foot. We've got two somewhat viable options as far as classes go, the Paladin and the Knight. Both start with 6 strength instead of 5, and even have an extra stat in endurance, so that's nice. I'm going to pick the Paladin since he also starts with the Mending Band. Every little bit helps. Ah, the ship. So much potential lore to unpack. And I'm just going to roll right past all of it. 10 seconds later, and we're at the boss, the Unspeakable Deep. Time to see what we can do. We may have made a mistake. While I beat my fists against that brick wall for a solid 10 minutes, let's figure out exactly what we've gotten ourselves into here. Fist scale with strength. Makes sense, but nothing else. Strength scaling soft caps around 50, and fist scale decently well. The only problem is their base damage. It's terrible. There's no point in having amazing scaling if the number you're scaling is 3. And as we mentioned earlier, we don't have access to upgrading or transmutation for our hands. Apparently calluses and broken bones don't count. Not only this, but every attack we do drains our stamina bar's maximum. This happens with every weapon, but it's actually noticeable now due to the fact that the boss fights are going to drag out. Meaning that we aren't just fighting a boss, we're fighting our own stamina. So what are we going to do? The Unspeakable Deep has one of the smaller health pools in the game, and he's weak to blunt damage, which is obviously what fists do. Judging by the footage behind me, you can probably tell that this run's going to be unbearable if we keep at it like this. Don't worry, there's hope. Let's look at our planned build. Right away you'll notice our ring choice is heavily focused on increasing our damage and boosting our stamina and dodging. Pretty standard stuff. As far as armor goes, I don't have any complete sets planned, just a few bits and pieces. First is the Tarnished Coronet, which we can get from the Queen of Smiles after we defeat her. That'll give us an extra 10% damage, which is always nice. Blacksmith gloves give plus 3 strength when worn, and because it's such an early game armor, it'll benefit us quite a bit when we find it. The other armor I've got listed here is one you've probably never seen or used before, the Juzu Yudewa. Picked up right before the Forgotten Dome, these bad boys increase your melee damage by 50%. And yes, 50% of 3 is only 1.5, but the potential is there. Little side note, there is a set of heavy armor gloves that also give 50% damage boost, but like I said, it is heavy armor, and because we're already investing in the light armor tree, it seems kinda counterproductive to go after them. But in case you're wondering, it's the lamprey gloves and you can get them right after the false jester. Lastly, charms. But Submerged Lemon, why are you listing charms? You don't have a weapon to equip them to. Well, have you ever tried equipping a charm without a weapon? Yeah, me neither, until this challenge. Turns out, charms will still grant their effects when placed in the slot, regardless of whether or not you have a weapon. So that extra 10% damage? That's right, stack it on the pile. Got an enemy that's exceptionally weak to fire? Well hey, we have a charm for that. Feeling like playing a glass cannon? Yeah, there's a charm for you too. And so on. Now, unfortunately, weapon buffs such as the Pitchfire and the Blessed Pages don't work on your fists, so we won't be able to double our damage by doing that. However, there is one buff that we can get that will. Golden Wine. Drinking this Nectar of the Gods will give us another 50% damage boost, as well as extra gold we'll never need, and some pretty solid defense boosts. And that's our build. It's going to take a while to get it up and running, but once it takes off, I think we might actually have something workable here. Actually, there is one more thing we could do to our build. There's a ring, hidden away in the game's files called the Twin Metal Ring. A ring that boosts fist damage by another 50%. Lost to game production time crunch, this ring was completed, but never placed on the in-game world. And so it waits. hidden away in the debug menu, waiting for someone like us to unleash its power. I actually reached out to the developer of the game, James Silva, to see if the ring was ever intended to be placed in the game or if it was just a fun side project, and he said that it was originally going to be placed above the Bandit's Pass Sanctuary, where the mace currently sits. That's really close.
Hey buddy, we should grab that. We could boost our damage so quick this whole run would become a cakewalk.
Solid argument. What's your take?
You said no cheating or exploits. Those poor souls on console can't access the debug menu. They'd never know whether this run was doable on their own ends.
That's a good point.
Counterpoint, the developer said it was okay. He wanted to put the ring in the game, he just ran out of time. What more do we need?
Alright. Get out of here, both of you. I need to think.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're not going to use it. That wouldn't be fair to everyone. And with that moral dilemma out of the way, let's get this ball rolling. Oh my god, am I still fighting this thing? Can I get a fast forward, please? Alright, finally. God, I hope this build works. Waking up on the beach, we're asked to pick a creed. Won't really matter which one you pick. We can't use any of the damage buffs their creeds offer, and I'm not really concerned about anything else they can give us. So just pick your favorite icon and move on. Well, it's good to see our damage is consistently terrible. At least we got that going for us. Considering we don't want that to be the running theme here, let's just go ahead and throw into strength like no other. Ah, there we go. That's better. After quickly ascending the festering banquet, we put our fist to the test. Sodden Knight is weak to blunt, not particularly strong, and has the smallest health pool of all the bosses. And honestly, the fight goes without a hitch. A little slower than normal maybe, but nothing terrible. After pushing on, we... Nope, I said I'd do it right, and we're gonna do it right. Just in case. After that, we grab a few choice rings. The Kismet Stone for some item find, for Batwing grinding later, the Fused Metal Ring for endurance and for the sake of filling out our ring slots, and the Wrapped Link, so that we can dodge like a champion, float like a butterfly, sting like a slightly angrier butterfly. At the Sanctuary, we find our blacksmith gloves and immediately equip those, and we could go down into the Watching Woods to collect some charms and rings, but I don't think they'll help all that much right now, so let's just go after the boss.
You so fucking precious when you
Well, I guess this is what a blunt resistant boss looks like. Not exactly excited about that, especially considering that most of the bosses are blunt resistant. We need to speed up our build. Unfortunately, aside from collecting a few charms and rings, the Bloodflower Charm for damage, the Pale Charm for reach, the Mossy Charm for speed, and the Bright Coral Ring for stamina and item find, there's not really a whole lot more we can do aside from grind, which I really don't want to do. The ring helps a bit with finding Batwings though, so we can finish that up while we're running through the Watching Woods. As for the charms though, it's a mixed bag. The Bloodflower Charm is noticeably helpful, but our attack speed and reach are already so pitiful that their respective charms don't seem to be doing all that much. At least we got more damage. With Batwings in hand, we can go after the Mad Alchemist. As you can see, I didn't bother with grinding, probably a mistake. Well, the damage isn't bad, but it's not great either. And that's going to be a problem at the second phase. For those of you watching that have only fought the Mad Alchemist with a great weapon, let me explain. For those of us that can't just 4-hit the Alchemist and win, he goes into a frenzy at 50% health. He begins throwing more pots, and these pots are more enhanced than usual. If you can't kill him quickly, this tiny little arena becomes a death trap of whirling blades, poison cytoplasm, and elemental hitboxes. You should try it, it's a good time. I'm alive? Oh my god, I'm alive. I don't know how or why I lived, but that is the closest to death that I think I've ever been. Is there even a pixel of HP in there? With that close call, I think it's about time we put this madman out of his misery. Moving along. Before we tackle the next boss, we're going to swing up and grab the plated band for a little extra boost to our damage. Devara knows we need every little boost we can get. As for our damage, it's gotten pretty respectable, but we're still in the early game, and we're going to need to push that damage much more if we're going to be able to stand up to any of these later bosses. Alright, time for the Kraken Cyclops and the False Jester. Neither boss really puts up that much of a fight. Both bosses have easy wind-up attacks that can be taken advantage of, so as long as we don't get greedy, we'll be able to whittle them down to nothing. Continuing on to the Castle of Storms, there's not a whole lot to do here. We've nabbed the Jester's outfit, and with that slight boost to item discovery, we've gotten all the Batwings we needed, so that's great. We could grind the Ember Skulls here as well, but I'd rather not stop and bother with that unless we get stuck. If we do this right, 1 minute of golden wine will hopefully be all we ever need. We've also grabbed the Queen of Smiles crown, but we can't quite wear it just yet, so let's just push forward to the worm. As any new player knows, the Kraken worm has a nasty tendency to climb into the air and attack from above, making any melee character twiddle their thumbs for minutes on end. Thankfully, due to our blunt damage, there's an off chance that we'll stun lock him out of his animations, and with a little help from RNG, we actually managed a pretty decent fight. His pattern isn't too hard to figure out so long as you're on the right side of his fire breath, and it's really an easy fight. Add the fact that he's weak to our blunt damage, and there you go. After the worm, things are really starting to heat up.
Who did that?
After getting the Shadow Flip brand from the thief, we can swing upward and grab our first elemental charm for some extra fire damage, which we're going to use immediately. So long as we aren't fighting anything that's resistant to fire, we're getting both the 10% boost and fire damage, which can do a little extra on top. Also, it looks cool, and let's be honest, that's the real reason we're doing anything in this run. Before we move on, it should be noted that I'm a little nervous at this point. The next two bosses are going to be a little tough. The Inquisitor, just because he hits hard and has a tendency to float out of range, and the Tree of Men because jumping and meleeing have never been my forte.
Shameless plug. Shameless plug. Shameless plug.
Add that to the fact that I'm not quite happy with our damage output, and we're not going to be in for a good time. To counter this fear, we've got some big changes coming to our build. First off, we can pick up the Juzu Yudewa, which will give us that whopping 50% boost to our fists. Our stylish blacksmith gloves will be missed, but we've gotten to the point where 3 more points in strength is less than the boost, so it is what it is. Secondly, the Dome of the Forgotten is a great place to grind out some salt. We're close enough to 50 strength as it is, so I figure we might as well just top off our damage scaling before we move on.
2 hours later.
Alright, that's all taken care of. From here on out, the only increase in damage we'll get will come from equipment. So, now that that's done, let's get the last bit of damage added to our build.
The golden wine.
It's through the Red Hall of Cages, which can be intimidating, but don't worry, I've got a plan. First off, we'll quickly grab the Vial Charm. You never know, it might be handy to have some damage over time for the longer boss fights. Next, we're just going to make sure we have full health, and take this here elevator shaft to the Golden Boys. Just make sure to chug down a health pot at the bottom so you can regenerate your shattered ankles. And don't worry, so long as you have full health before you fall, you'll never die, regardless of your level. Fall damage is based on a percentage of your health, not an actual number, so you could fall down this shaft at level 1 and still survive. After running past the remaining enemies,
Come on!
we can finally join the House of Splendor. Wine flows like water here, and after summoning a leader, we can finally indulge in the damage buffing meat of our choice. Actually, come to think of it, I probably should have done this before grinding. Damage buff would really help to speed that up. Oops. Time for the tree. Thankfully, I've done enough runs to know a few tricks to this boss. In the first stage, it can be a pain to hit the hanged men, especially when our range is as short as it is. Here's a tip though. Hang around the feet. It may sound counterintuitive, especially with the shockwaves he produces, but if you stay directly under a foot, he'll start an animation loop where he just stomps back and forth, so long as you continue to hang out below his booties. This should get most of the ads out of the way. A little cleanup, and it's on to phase 2. Strangely, this half goes pretty well. The tree itself is weak to blunt damage, and it's nice enough to come within punching range every so often. We definitely have to remain alert though. Between the flamethrowers, the platforms, and the tree's third phase where he gains a flame breath, we'll need to make every hit count. It's a little closer than I would like, but we get there eventually. Ah, Hager's Cavern, the bane of my very salty existence. Too many of the enemies here have embraced thinking with portals for my liking, and getting stuck in one of their wombo combos just makes me sad. Oddly enough, the fists are pretty adept at taking them out. I knew the blunt damage would help, but it looks like our stagger damage has actually been boosted at some point. We can wombo combo them back ourselves.
Hey, Tony, isn't that that blue meat bag motherfucker?
Oh yeah, there he is. Hey, let's go fuck him up.
Yeah, you in for it now, motherfucker.
Oh shit.
Hey, guys, I got a little turnaround back there. You guys still need a little help or... Oh! Fuck! Oh, shit! Nope. No, I've already died once. I don't need to die a second time. I'll get paid enough for this.
The only thing of note in this cavern is the Golden Stone Charm, which helps us continue to round out our elemental rainbow. It's not too hard to get either, which is nice. Much like the Red Hall, this area can be a real pain to navigate, what with the frustrating enemies and all the walking on the ceiling. But to this point, I ask you one question. Why bother? Why go through all that nonsense when you can just fall with style?
Oh my god, my poor ankles.
The Disemboweled Husk. I used to think he was hard, but it turns out that if you've got the fastest roll, you can actually dodge through his gunshots with relative ease. You might need the Raptor Link if he ever decides to do a double shot attack on you, but you can still dodge both attacks if he ever catches you on the wrong side of the arena. Between our maxed out strength stat and all the new boosts we've made to our damage, he's not very hard.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
I've never actually seen that movie. Also, I apparently just assumed that that line was from $1 Million Baby. It's from Dirty Dancing. I don't get out much. The mire isn't very interesting, so let's just scoot through. There's the red hair charm up at the top of the level, which would give us another 50% damage boost if we ever drop to low health. I'm not too keen to use that in our build, but we'll grab it just in case. As for the stench itself, there's not much to talk about. Our health is high enough now that most of his attacks just kinda graze us, and as long as we keep some antidotes on hand and avoid letting the poison damage stack too quickly, it goes down without too much trouble. Let's just make sure we grab the mossy ring and the redshift brand, and we can skedaddle back to the dome. Hop, skip, and a jump, and we're at the Inquisitor. Perhaps we shouldn't have been worried. With our current build, he keels over pretty quick. He is just the precursor to the real boss of the dome, though, the third lamb. If you don't know its pattern, it can certainly be pretty tricky. My recommendation? Grab the Golden Stone Ring and save your Golden Wine until the second phase. The first phase is pretty predictable, but you'll take some hefty hits if you don't have extra defense in phase 2. Chances are, these two items will save your bacon at least once. After beating the lamb into submission, we get the Hard Light brand. One more brand and we can finally get everywhere in the game, so let's go ahead and nab that really quick. But first, we have to make it through the Dried King. He's not very difficult under normal circumstances due to how well he projects his attacks, and he's weak to blunt, so as long as you're patient and dodge at the right times, you'll be just fine. I tried using the Vial Charm, but it never procced. Oh well, it was worth a shot. With that, we can collect the Dart brand, giving us free reign of the map. We grabbed the Far Beach Sanctuary just to have it, but we're not going to go after the Bloodless Prince just yet. That boss has the largest health pool in the game, and I'd like my build to be as complete as possible. So, let's head on over to Ronan Cran, shall we? Double fisting golden wines, we can make quick work of Cran here. I used the Vial Charm again, this time to greater success. I don't know why, but I think it's kinda cool knowing that the enemy is already dead when they don't even know it.
Nani?
Poor guy didn't even know he was dead. I make a stop in Maul's floating castle so we can collect the Silver Salt Charm. Salt is basically meaningless to us anyway at this point, so the fact that it costs salt to use really isn't that important. In fact, what better way to test it than on Maul herself? Wow, she's going down pretty quickly. I think we finally rounded out our... Wait, where'd you go? Alright, I got a little carried away there. Let's just fix that in post. Much better. One last stop before the Prince. We run through the Pitchwoods, grabbing up the last few elemental charms and completing our collection. And while we're here, we might as well take out Garstraw. Poor guy never stands a chance against any weapon. It's no wonder he hides behind all these platforming puzzles. Alright, Prince time. Let's hit it. No, really, who keeps doing that? Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. I started with some poison, hoping to whittle him down, but after seeing the damage numbers... Yeah, that's a little disheartening. Let's just go all-out damage instead. Oh, it might help if I actually drank my golden wine. Man, the Prince's health really sucks. This fight is a war of attrition. Still, given enough time and patience, we can snag ourselves a victory. We grab the Bloodflower ring on the way down to the Coveted and... Oh, it doesn't stack with all the other buffs. Well, that sucks. Oh well. One more ring slot available, I guess. Anyway, on to the Coveted. We're basically in the home stretch from here on out, so let's speed it up. The Coveted is weak to Blunt and Arcane, so even if you don't have salt to spare for the Silver Salt Charm, you'll be just fine. Also, if you're having a hard time, you can always cheese the boss by hanging out at the right side of the screen. This will only aggro one of the ghosts, making this boss fight infinitely easier. We won't do that for the sake of the challenge, but it's a possibility if you need it. Next is the Witch of the Lake. I'm worried. This boss is well known for her RNG and her extremely heavy damage. If you just happen to get a bad combination of attacks, or on the wrong side of the arena when she unleashes that wave of damage at you, that's basically it. She has some of the hardest attacks to dodge too, so it's difficult to claim that practice will help you improve your chances. All that said though, it looks like RNG is on our side. Not only are we getting lucky with the attack combos, but it looks like she's taken enough damage from the Impin Charm that there's no need to use Silver Salt on this one. That'll save some salt, and it's nice to know that we'd be okay if we died a few times. Moving right along, the next boss is hiding in another maze of an area, but here's a shortcut. Just make sure you jump from the platform. Those poor ankles of yours can't take much more. Oh, our first double fight. Well, technically the Coveted counts, I guess, but this is the first one where you'll be fighting two distinct enemies with different movesets. This should be fine, but... Oh god. Okay, let's try that again. What the hell is happening? I'm not sure why, but this boss is a complete brick wall for me. I die over and over and over. It's their combinations. An unlucky smack from the Unskinned sends me pinballing into the Architect's magic orbs. Luckily, it looks like the Shroud charm is doing as much as the Silver Salt charm does, so at least losing all my salt is less painful. I tried pretty much everything. I even tried using the Pale charm to help hit the Unskinned, but it's just not working. Oh, finally. Okay, now we can just go beat the— oh, come on! What? After way more jest than I should have had, I finally figured out what I was doing wrong. I'm going after the wrong boss. If you can kill the Architect first, that'll get rid of the randomly spawning pinballs, which are probably 90% of my deaths. After getting a good run and beating her down, all that's left is the Unskinned. Alone, he's just another beefcake. Considering how much trouble we just had, I'm a bit worried about the Forgotten King. Now that there's 3 bosses to keep track of and a caster still in the mix, I don't know. Let's see what we're in for. Oh hey, that's not bad. Okay, we might not be in as much trouble as I thought. Between dealing a significant amount of damage, and the fact that the judge's magic attacks are not nearly as random as the Architect's, a little pulling and dragging, combined with some patience, nets us a victory pretty easily. I'm glad that went as well as it did. Next we have Scuzz? Scourge? Seath? Whatever, I have no idea. He's pretty simple on a normal run, so all we really need to do is... okay, yep, that's what I get for poking fun at his name, I guess. Anyway, he's not bad. His pattern is pretty simple, and so long as you can time your jumps for 50% of his attacks, you'll be just fine. The only thing worth mentioning here is that his resistances are pretty different from anything we've fought. Aside from lightning being an obvious no-go, the rest of them are actually pretty high. Your mileage may vary, but I'm thinking that just going with pure damage on this one is the way to go. Unfortunately, we can't use the Silver Salt charm anymore, so I guess 10% is better than no percent. Like the rest, so long as we persevere, he falls. This is it, the end of the line. This has been an awesome run thus far, and I'm really glad I did it. Using weapons that I've never considered before always makes my brain tingle, and it really feels good to beat a game in an unorthodox way. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's finish strong. So before we jump into this pit, let's strategize. The Nameless God is weak to blunt, so we're good there. As for the rest of his defenses, yeah, pure damage charms all the way on this one. Alright, here we go. So long as we don't get nervous and fumble it at the last second, I think we're going to be okay. The damage is really good, and... wait a minute, I'm not even buffed. What am I doing? Let's take a swig and see what that does for us. Oh yeah, that settles it. A few well-timed hits, and we're done. We jump down the well, attempt to drop our own fists, realize we're an idiot, and swim to safety. Can you beat Salt and Sanctuary with only your fists? I'd say that's a definite yes. There were definitely some early game struggles to overcome, but so long as your build is working in your favor, I'd say you can easily attempt this run yourself. Furthermore, I suggest you do. The challenge is fun and not overly tedious, and if you're looking for a different way to play, I don't think you'll find anything like it. And let's be real, if you can beat the game with your fists, you can beat the game with anything. Before we go, I have one more question. What about those of us on PC? Those of us who aren't looking for the full challenge, but just want to have some fun. Would it have gone any differently? I'm glad you asked. Whew, that was a long one. Thanks for sticking through to the end. If you have any other challenges you'd like to see me do, let me know in the comments down below. I'll make sure to give you a shout out in the next video. Also, if you're feeling generous, why not like and subscribe? Internet points are important to YouTube, and it would really help out the channel. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon.